Reeves walked away from the film set. He had just wrapped up a particularly demanding day of shooting his latest action movie. His muscles ached from the stunts, but there was something satisfying about the physical exhaustion that came with giving everything to a performance. Keanu decided to walk rather than call his driver. These quiet moments alone in the city helped clear his head after the intensity of filming. Despite his fame, he could sometimes blend in when he dressed casually. Just another person in a city full of people rushing somewhere important. He pulled his baseball cap lower over his eyes and continued down the street, passing small shops, closing for the day. The familiar weight of his backpack felt comforting against his shoulders. Inside was a dog-eared paperback he'd been reading between takes, a water bottle, and a few other personal items. Simple things that kept him grounded amid the chaos of Hollywood. As he waited for the crosswalk signal to change, Keanu noticed a small park across the street. Something pulled him toward it, maybe the need for a moment of quiet before heading back to his hotel. The park wasn't anything special, just a small green space with a few benches and trees providing shade from the California sun. But sometimes, these ordinary places offered the most peace. Keanu crossed the street and entered the park, nodding politely to a couple who recognized him, but respectfully kept their distance. He appreciated these small courtesies more than anyone might guess. Fame had its perks, but the loss of privacy was something he'd never fully adjusted to, even after decades in the spotlight. He was about to sit on an empty bench when he noticed someone on a bench near the edge of the park. There was something about the way the person sat, shoulders slightly hunched forward, head tilted at a particular angle, that triggered a distant memory. Keanu paused, his hand still on the back of the bench. That familiar posture tugged at something deep in his mind. The person was a woman with shoulder-length brown hair streaked with early gray. She wore layers of clothing despite the warm day, a sign of someone who lived outdoors and carried everything they owned. Beside her sat a weathered backpack and a small cart containing what looked like all her possessions. Keanu stood frozen, trying to place why she seemed familiar. And then she turned slightly, her profile catching the light, and 30 years melted away in an instant. "Lily," he whispered, too quietly for anyone to hear. Lily Chen had been his first real love. They'd met as teenagers in Toronto. She was the quiet, brilliant girl who sat next to him in art class. Their connection had been immediate and profound in the way only first loves can be. For nearly 2 years they'd been inseparable, dreaming of futures together, sharing secrets and fears and hopes that he'd never shared with anyone before or since. Then one day, she was gone. Her father had received a job offer back in their hometown in another country. This was before email, before social media, before smartphones made the world small enough to fit in your pocket. They'd written letters at first, but gradually, as life pulled them in different directions, the letters became less frequent until they stopped altogether. Keanu took a deep breath and approached slowly, suddenly unsure of himself in a way he rarely felt anymore. As he got closer, doubt crept in. It had been 3 decades. People change. Memory plays tricks. Maybe it wasn't her at all. But then she looked up, and those eyes, warm brown with flecks of gold near the pupils, were unmistakable. They were older now, surrounded by fine lines that spoke of both laughter and hardship, but they were Lily's eyes. For a moment, she just stared at him, confusion clear on her face. Then recognition dawned and her eyes widened. "Keanu?" Her voice was hoarse, as if she didn't use it much these days, but it was still hers. "Lily," he said again, this time loud enough for her to hear. "I thought it was you." She looked away quickly, her hands fidgeting with the edge of her worn jacket. "I didn't expect to see anyone I knew, especially not you." Keanu gestimated respectfully, unsure if he should sit. "Would it be okay if I joined you for a minute?" She hesitated, then nodded, sliding slightly to make room. He sat down, careful to leave enough space between them. Up close, he could see that life had been hard on her. There was a weariness in her face that went beyond physical tiredness. Her clothes were clean but worn thin in places, Her hands, once so graceful when they painted together in art class, were now rough and chapped. "How long has it been?" she asked, her eyes still not meeting his. "Almost 30 years," Keanu replied softly. "Not since Toronto." A small smile touched her lips. "Art class. Mrs. Donovan always put us together because we were the only ones who could actually draw. You were better," Keanu said, and meant it. "You could have been a professional artist." The smile faded and she shrugged. "Life doesn't always go the way we plan." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of all the unasked questions between them. Keanu wanted to know everything: how she'd ended up here, what had happened in the years between, whether she'd been happy before whatever circumstances led her to this park bench, but he knew better than to pry. "Do you live around here?" he asked instead, knowing the answer but giving her the dignity of telling her own story. Lily gestured vaguely. "Here and there. I've been in LA for about 2 years now. And before that, all over. After my parents died, I moved around a lot." She glanced at him briefly. "I saw your movies sometimes, when I could." "You did good." "Just lucky," he said automatically. She shook her head. "No, you always had something special. Even back then, everyone could see it but you." A woman walking her dog passed by, doing a double take when she recognized Keanu. He nodded politely, but turned back to Lily, who had noticed the interaction and seemed to shrink into herself. "I'm making you uncomfortable," she said quietly. "You should go. People are watching." "I don't care about that," Keanu said honestly. "Well, I do." There was a flash of the old Lily in her eyes, determined, principled. "I don't want to be tomorrow's tabloid story." Keanu understood. Privacy was precious, especially when you had so little else to call your own. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small notepad and pen. He always carried them for jotting down thoughts or observations that might be useful for a character. He wrote down his private number, not the one his agent or publicist used, but his personal line that very few people had. "Here," he said, tearing out the page and offering it to her. "If you ever want to talk, or need anything, anytime." Lily looked at the paper but didn't take it. "I didn't tell you I was here so you would rescue me." "I know that," he said, still holding out the paper. "But old friends should be able to catch up, right? No strings attached." After a long moment, she took the paper and carefully folded it into a small square, tucking it into an inner pocket of her jacket. "I should go. The shelter opens at 6 and the good spots fill up fast." Keanu nodded, understanding her need to end the conversation on her terms. "It was really good to see you, Lily." As she gathered her things, he fought the urge to help her, sensing it would be unwelcome. She stood, adjusting the straps of her backpack with practiced movements. "You know," she said, looking at him directly for the first time, "I still have that drawing you did of me, the one from the class trip to the museum, kept it all these years." Before Keanu could respond, she turned and walked away, the small cart rattling slightly behind her. He watched her go, feeling an ache in his chest that had nothing to do with the day's stunts. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting the park in golden light, Keanu remained on the bench, thinking about paths taken and not taken, about the strange coincidences that bring people together across time and circumstance, and he wondered if she would call, knowing somehow that their story wasn't finished yet. On the third morning, while reviewing his lines for the day's shoot, his phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "It's Lily. Could we talk?" "If you're still interested," Keanu texted back immediately, suggesting they meet at a small coffee shop he knew, quiet, tucked away on a side street where they were unlikely to be bothered. She agreed, and they set a time for later that afternoon, when he would be finished filming. As Keanu drove to the coffee shop, he felt an unexpected nervousness. He had faced down reporters, performed in front of thousands, and starred in blockbuster films seen by millions. Yet the thought of sitting across from Lily made his heart beat faster. What would they talk about after all these years? Would the connection they once shared still be there, buried beneath the weight of their very different lives? He arrived early and chose a table in the back corner, away from windows. The place was nearly empty. Just an elderly couple reading newspapers and a college student typing furiously on a laptop. He ordered 2 coffees and waited, glancing at the door every few seconds. When Lily walked in, he almost didn't recognize her. She looked different from the woman in the park. Her hair was pulled back neatly, and she wore clean, simple clothes, likely from a donation center but dignified. She had made an effort, and that touched him deeply. Keanu stood as she approached. "I'm glad you called," he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. Lily sat down cautiously, her eyes taking in the surroundings. "Nice place. Quiet. That's why I like it." He pushed one of the coffees toward her. "I got you regular, but I can get something else if you prefer." "This is fine." She wrapped her hands around the mug, seeming to appreciate its warmth. "Thank you." They sat in silence. For a moment, 30 years of unspoken history stretching between them. Keanu noticed she still had the same habit of tucking her hair behind her ear when she was nervous. Some things never changed. "You look good," she said finally, with a small smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Movie makeup," he joked. "They can make anyone look decent these days." That earned a genuine chuckle. "Always modest." "That hasn't changed." Keanu took a sip of his coffee. "How have you been, really?" Lily looked down at her hands. "I thought about what to tell you, whether to make up some story that would sound better than the truth. But you deserve better than that. You don't owe me any explanations," Keanu said gently. "Maybe not, but I want to tell you anyway." She took a deep breath. "After my family moved back to Taiwan, things were hard. My father's new job fell through, and my mother got sick. Cancer. I came back to the States for college on a scholarship, studied architecture. Actually did pretty well for a while." She paused, taking a sip of coffee. Keanu remained silent, giving her space to continue at her own pace. "I had my own firm in Seattle by my mid-30s. Got married to another architect. We were doing some interesting work, affordable housing projects, community centers, things that mattered." Her voice grew stronger as she spoke about her work, passion briefly lighting up her face. "What happened?" Keanu asked softly when she fell silent again. "Car accident. 6 years ago. Drunk driver hit us head-on. My husband died instantly." She said this flatly, as if distancing herself from the pain. "I survived, but with a spinal injury. Spent months in the hospital. Multiple surgeries, the medical bills." She shook her head. "Insurance fought everything. By the time I could work again, the firm had fallen apart. I lost the house. Then the economy tanked, and no one was hiring architects, especially ones who couldn't stand for long periods or lift heavy things." Keanu felt a deep ache in his chest. "I'm so sorry, Lily," she shrugged. "I tried to hang on. Stayed with friends until it got awkward. Took whatever jobs I could find, but between the medical bills and the chronic pain, it just became too much. Been on the streets about a year now." "A year?" Keanu couldn't hide his shock. "But isn't there family or—" "My parents are gone. No siblings, and pride is a dangerous thing," she admitted. "I kept thinking I could fix it myself. By the time I realized I couldn't, it was too late." She looked at him directly. "I'm not telling you this for pity, Keanu. You asked, and you deserve the truth." They sat in silence again, but it was a different kind of silence, heavier with the weight of her story, yet somehow more comfortable. The walls between them had started to come down. "Remember when we used to talk about what we wanted to be?" Keanu asked, steering toward gentler memories. "You were going to design buildings that changed how people lived, create spaces that brought communities together." A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "And you were going to be a hockey player." "Until I figured out I wasn't nearly good enough," he laughed. "Life takes strange turns." "Some stranger than others," she agreed, her eyes meeting his. The barista called out an order, momentarily breaking the bubble around them. Lily glanced at the clock on the wall and shifted in her seat. "Do you need to go?" Keanu asked. "Soon. The shelter has dinner at 6, and—" She trailed off, looking embarrassed. "Can I ask you something?" Keanu leaned forward slightly. What would help you most right now if you could have anything? Lily's expression hardened slightly. I didn't contact you for a handout. I know that, he said quickly. That's not what I meant. I want to help if I can. As a friend, she studied him for a long moment. You always were a good person, even as a teenager when most guys were just thinking about themselves. I don't know about that, he said, feeling uncomfortable with the praise. Lily took another sip of her coffee, thinking, what would help most? Honestly? A chance. Just a fair shot at getting back on my feet. Not charity. I've had enough of feeling like a case to be managed. I still have my skills, my mind still works, I just need someone to look past. She gestured vaguely at herself. Keanu nodded, understanding. What about your architecture? Do you still design? Something flickered in her eyes. Sometimes. On paper. Whatever scraps I can find. She reached into her worn bag and hesitantly pulled out a small, tattered notebook. After a moment's hesitation, she slid it across the table to him. Nothing fancy, just ideas. Keanu opened the notebook carefully. Inside were detailed sketches of buildings, not grand skyscrapers, but thoughtful, practical spaces. Community centers with areas for children and elderly to interact. Affordable housing units that still maintained dignity and beauty. Small, urban parks that maximized limited space. The drawings were remarkable, especially considering they were done with whatever pens she could find. These are incredible, Lily, he said, genuinely impressed. You never lost your eye. She shrugged, but he could tell the compliment meant something to her. Keeps me sane. Reminds me who I used to be. Keanu had an idea forming, but he knew better than to spring it on her now. Instead, he carefully returned the notebook. Would it be okay if we met again? Maybe talk some more? Lily studied him, seeming to search for hidden motives. Finding none, she nodded slowly. I'd like that. As they prepared to leave, Keanu resisted the urge to offer her money directly, understanding it would only create distance between them. Instead, he mentioned casually that the film he was working on involved designing some elaborate sets, and he'd be interested in her professional opinion sometime. They parted ways outside the coffee shop, Lily heading toward the shelter, and Keanu to his car. As he watched her walk away, her posture a little straighter than it had been in the park, he felt certain of one thing. Their story wasn't over yet. In fact, it might just be beginning a new chapter. A week passed before Keanu and Lily met, again. He had been busy with long days on set, and she had picked up some temporary work helping at a downtown community center. They texted occasionally, brief messages that somehow felt significant despite their simplicity. Hope your day is going well. Just saw a dog that looked like the one you drew in art class. Small connections across the vast differences in their lives. When Keanu finally had a day off, he invited Lily to visit the movie set. It was a bold move, bringing someone from his personal life into his professional world. But something told him it was the right thing to do. Are you sure? She had asked over the phone, her voice hesitant. Won't people ask questions? Let them, Keanu had replied. You're an old friend visiting, nothing strange about that. He arranged for a car to pick her up at the community center. When she arrived at the sprawling film studio, Keanu was waiting outside, away from the bustle of the set. Lily stepped out of the car looking nervous, but composed. She wore the same jeans as before, but with a different sweater, dark green this time, and her hair was tied back neatly. She carried a small backpack, worn but clean. This is overwhelming, she admitted as she looked around at the massive warehouses in the small city of trailers and equipment. Keanu smiled. Wait until you see inside. It's like a different world. He led her through security where the guards nodded respectfully, clearly surprised to see Keanu personally escorting a visitor. As they walked, crew members glanced their way with undisguised curiosity. Keanu was known for keeping his private life extremely private. Everyone's staring, Lily whispered, walking slightly closer to him. They're just not used to me bringing guests, Keanu explained. Don't worry about it. He guided her to the main soundstage where most of the filming took place. When he pushed open the heavy door, Lily gasped audibly. Inside was an entire street, or rather, what a city street might look like 50 years in the future. Sleek buildings rose on either side, their designs both familiar and alien. Holographic advertisements flickered on the walls. Unusual vehicles were parked along the curb. Every detail had been meticulously crafted, from the texture of the sidewalk to the strange plants growing in window boxes. It's incredible, Lily breathed, turning slowly to take it all in. For the first time since they'd reconnected, Keanu saw genuine wonder on her face. The scale of it, the attention to detail. "This is what I wanted to show you," Keanu said, pleased by her reaction. "Come on, there's someone I want you to meet." He led her across the set to where a tall woman with glasses and a tablet was directing a team of workers on adjustments to one of the building facades. "Vivian," Keanu called. The woman turned and smiled when she saw him. "Keanu," I thought, "today was your day off." "It is. I wanted to introduce you to someone." He gestured to Lily. "This is Lily Chen, an old friend of mine and an architect. Lily, this is Vivian Rodriguez, our production designer. She's the genius behind all of this." Vivian looked surprised but extended her hand to Lily. "An architect? Real or movie kind?" "Real," Lily said with a small smile, shaking Vivian's hand. "Though not practicing at the moment." Lily specialized in community spaces and sustainable urban development, Keanu added. "I thought she might have some interesting perspectives on our future city." Vivian's eyes lit up. "Actually, that would be incredibly helpful. We've been struggling with making these buildings look futuristic but still functional. Most sci-fi goes for style over substance, but we want this world to feel like it could actually exist." The two women quickly fell into a technical conversation that Keanu could barely follow. He stood back, watching as Lily grew more animated, her hands moving expressively as she suggested adjustments to the angles of the buildings, ways to incorporate green spaces into the vertical structures, how people might actually live and move through such spaces. Vivian was taking notes rapidly on her tablet. "These are fantastic ideas. Would you mind looking at some of our concept art for the next set? We're building an apartment complex, and honestly, I'm not satisfied with the current design." Lily glanced at Keanu, who nodded encouragingly. "I'd love to," she said. They spent the next hour in Vivian's office, surrounded by sketches and digital renderings. Keanu sat quietly in the corner, watching as Lily came alive, her expertise and passion evident in every suggestion she made. This was the Lily he remembered, confident, brilliant, seeing possibilities others missed. When Vivian was called away for an urgent matter on set, Lily sat back in her chair, looking slightly embarrassed. "I got carried away," she said to Keanu. "Sorry about that." "Don't apologize, it was amazing watching you work." She shook her head. "I wasn't working, just talking." "Ideas are valuable," Keanu said simply. Vivian certainly thought so. As if, on cue, Vivian returned, slightly breathless. "Lily, I have a crazy question. How would you feel about consulting on this project? Just for the next few weeks while we finish the city sets? We'd pay you, of course." Lily froze, clearly caught off guard. "Consulting? Me?" "Yes, you. Your ideas about vertical gardens and community, spaces in the residential towers, they're exactly what we've been missing. It would give our future city a soul, not just a cool look." Vivian was already pulling up contract forms on her tablet. "I can set it up as a short-term consulting position. No pressure, but we'd love to have your input." Lily looked at Keanu, a mix of emotions crossing her face. Hope, fear, suspicion. "Did you set this up?" she asked quietly. "I just made the introduction," he said honestly. "Vivian knows talent when she sees it." Lily turned back to Vivian. "I don't have a fixed address or a bank account, and I'm not sure I have the right clothes for a film set." "We can work around the paperwork issues," Vivian said dismissively. "As for clothes, we have a whole costume department, but honestly, no one cares what you wear as long as your ideas are good, and yours are brilliant." After a moment's hesitation, Lily nodded. "Okay, yes, I'd love to help." "Perfect." Vivian clapped her hands together. Can you start tomorrow? 10 a.m.? I'll be here, Lily said, a cautious smile spreading across her face. When Vivian left to handle the paperwork, Keanu and Lily sat in silence for a moment. Thank you, Lily said finally, her voice thick with emotion. For the introduction. I didn't do anything, Keanu insisted. This is all you. Your talent, your ideas. But you created the opportunity. You saw me as more than... She gestured vaguely at herself. More than my circumstances. Because you are more than your circumstances, Keanu said firmly. Always. Have been. Later, as they walked back toward the studio entrance, Lily seemed lost in thought. What are you thinking? Keanu asked. That I need to find a place to stay, she said practically. I can't show up to work from a shelter. And I need to be able to shower regularly, have clean clothes. I have a guest house, Keanu said carefully, knowing he was treading on delicate ground. At my place in the hills. It's separate from the main house. Complete privacy. You could stay there while you're working on the film. Lily stopped walking, her expression guarded. Keanu, it's not charity, he said quickly. Think of it as a work arrangement. The production could even count it as part of your compensation. Plenty of consultants get housing as part of their contracts. She studied his face, looking for any sign of pity or ulterior motives. Finding none, she sighed. You're making it very hard for me to be stubbornly independent. Good, Keanu said with a small smile. Sometimes even the most independent people need a hand up. Not a handout, a hand up. There's a difference? A big one. A handout assumes you can't help yourself. A hand up recognizes that you just need the right opportunity to show what you can do. He paused. Let me help create that opportunity, Lily. After that, it's all you. The sunset painted the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks as they stood there, two people whose lives had taken such different paths, now converging again in ways neither could have imagined. Okay, Lily said finally, but I'm paying you back someday. Somehow. Deal, Keanu agreed, knowing better than to argue. Her pride was part of what had kept her going through the darkest times. He wouldn't take that away from her. As they walked to the car that would take Lily back to the shelter, for the last time, Keanu felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He couldn't change the past or erase the hardships she had endured. But maybe, just maybe, he could help create a bridge to a better future. And perhaps in helping Lily find her way back, he might find something he hadn't realized he was missing too. The guest house was small but beautiful, tucked away at the edge of Keanu's property with its own garden and a view of the hills. When he first showed it to Lily, she stood silently in the doorway, taking in the simple, elegant space, the comfortable furniture, the well-stocked kitchen, the desk by the window, where morning light would stream in. This is too much, she whispered, her hand gripping the doorframe as if for support. It's been sitting empty, Keanu said with a shrug. My housekeeper comes by once a week to dust, but otherwise no one uses it. Lily took a tentative step inside, then another. She ran her fingers lightly over the back of a chair, the smooth countertop, as if testing whether they were real. Her few possessions, carried in a single backpack, looked out of place in the pristine space. I don't know what to say, she admitted, turning to face him. You don't have to say anything, Keanu replied. Just get some rest. Tomorrow's a big day. He left her there with a spare key, the Wi-Fi password, and a fridge full of food. As he walked back to the main house, he felt a strange mix of emotions. Hope that she would find her footing again, worry that he might somehow be overstepping, and beneath it all, a quiet happiness that their paths had crossed again after so many years. The next few weeks fell into an unexpected rhythm. Keanu continued his work on the film, while Lily threw herself into her role as a consultant. They rarely saw each other during the day. Their schedules kept them in different parts of the massive studio, but often shared quiet dinners in the evening, either at the main house or the guest house. During these dinners, they slowly rebuilt their friendship. They talked about the years between, the good parts at least. Keanu told stories from his films, the interesting people he'd met, the places he'd traveled. Lily shared memories of the buildings she had designed, the challenges and triumphs of her career before the accident. Sometimes they didn't talk at all, just sat in comfortable silence on the patio, watching the sunset paint the hills gold and pink. These were the moments Keanu found himself looking forward to most, the rare, peaceful interludes in his usually chaotic life. On set, Lily was flourishing. Vivian had introduced her to the entire design team, and her ideas were being incorporated into multiple sets. The future city was evolving, becoming more realistic, more livable under her influence. Crew members who had initially been curious about Keanu's mysterious friend now sought her out for her expertise and perspective. One evening, about 3 weeks after Lily had moved into the guest house, Keanu returned home to find her sitting at the kitchen table in the main house, surrounded by sketches and a laptop, borrowed from the production office. "Sorry for invading your space," she said when she saw him. "The Wi-Fi signal is stronger here." "You're welcome anytime," he said, setting down his keys. "What are you working on?" Lily's eyes lit up with an enthusiasm he hadn't seen since they were teenagers. "Vivian asked me to completely redesign the community center for the third act. They weren't happy with the original concept, and she thought I might have a fresh take." She turned the laptop toward him, showing a digital rendering of a building unlike anything he'd seen before. It seemed to grow organically from the landscape, with gardens on multiple levels and walls that could reconfigure based on the community's needs. "It's incredible," Keanu said, genuinely impressed. "Is this the kind of thing you used to design?" "Before, some elements, yes," she said, looking back at the screen with pride. "But I've had a lot of time to think about what makes spaces truly work for people, especially people with nothing." Her voice grew softer. "When you live on the streets, you see how cities fail their most vulnerable. This design tries to address that." Keanu studied her face, noticing how much healthier she looked after just a few weeks of regular meals and proper rest. The haunted look in her eyes had faded, replaced by a quiet determination. She was still thin, but no longer fragile-looking. Her hair, which she'd cut herself one weekend, framed her face in a way that highlighted her sharp cheekbones and expressive eyes. "You know," he said carefully, "Vivian mentioned to me that the studio has been impressed with your work. The production designer for their next big project was asking about you." Lily looked up, surprised. "Really? Really? Apparently your ideas are generating a lot of buzz. Especially that vertical farm concept for the apartment building." She smiled, almost shyly. "It's just practical. If you're going to imagine the future, it should be one where people can actually live, not just look cool on camera." "Exactly. And that's why they're interested." Keanu hesitated, then decided to share the rest. "There might be an opportunity for something more permanent after this film wraps." Lily's smile faded, replaced by a guarded expression he had come to recognize. "Keanu, I appreciate everything you've done, but I don't want special treatment because of our history." "It's not special treatment," he insisted. "It's recognition of talent. You've earned this, Lily. Every bit of it." She looked down at her sketches, then back up at him. "Maybe, but I need to know it's real, that I'm not just a charity project." "You never were," Keanu said, his voice firm. "Not to me, and certainly not to Vivian or the studio. They don't make decisions based on sentimentality. Trust me on that. It's all about the bottom line." Lily nodded slowly, seeming to accept this. "We'll see what happens when the film wraps then." She began gathering her sketches. "I should get back to the guest house. Early meeting tomorrow." As she packed up, Keanu leaned against the counter watching her. "There's a wrap party next Friday," he said casually. "For the first unit. You should come." Lily paused, looking uncertain. "I don't know. Those things are for the cast and crew." "And you're part of the crew now," Keanu pointed out. "Everyone would love to see you there." The truth was, he wanted to see her there, wanted to share that part of his world with her, to see her fully included in the community she had been helping to build, at least on screen. I'll think about it, she said finally. Good night, Keanu. Good night, Lily. After she left, Keanu stood alone in the kitchen, reflecting on how quickly things had changed. Just a month ago, he had been walking through a park, thinking about nothing more important than his next scene. Now his life had expanded to include this unexpected reconnection, this chance to make something right in a world that had treated Lily so unfairly. But he was careful, so careful, not to rush things or make assumptions. They were rebuilding, a friendship, nothing more. The fact that he found himself looking forward to their evening conversations, or noticing the way the light caught her eyes when she was excited about a new idea, those were just natural responses to reconnecting with someone from his past, weren't they? The wrap party was held at an exclusive rooftop venue in downtown Los Angeles. The space had been transformed with lighting and decorations that mimicked the futuristic city from the film. Cast and crew mingled freely, celebrating the completion of months of hard work. Keanu arrived late, having been delayed by a last-minute interview. He scanned the crowd, nodding to colleagues but searching for one face in particular. He had almost given up when he spotted her near the edge of the rooftop, looking out at the city lights. Lily wore a simple black dress, borrowed from the costume department, he guessed, and had pinned her hair up in a style that reminded him of how she used to wear it in art class. She looked both out of place and perfectly at home, an observer on the periphery of the celebration. As Keanu made his way toward her, people stopped him to chat, to take photos, to share inside jokes from the set. He smiled and engaged briefly with each person, but kept moving, his eyes never leaving Lily. When he finally reached her, she turned as if sensing his presence. "There you are," she said. "I was beginning to think you'd changed your mind about coming." "Interview ran long," he explained. "You look nice." She smoothed the front of her dress self-consciously. "The costume designer helped me out. Said I couldn't come in jeans and a sweater. She was right. You look beautiful." The words slipped out before he could consider them, hanging in the air between them. Lily's eyes widened slightly. Then she looked away, back toward the city lights. "It's quite a view," she said, changing the subject. "I've never seen LA from up here before." Keanu accepted the redirection gracefully. "It's different from above. More lights, less traffic." They stood side by side looking out at the sprawling city. Music and laughter from the party continued behind them, but they had found a quiet pocket of space in the midst of it all. "Thank you," Lily said suddenly, still gazing at the view. "For what?" "For seeing me that day in the park, for not looking away." She turned to face him fully. Most people would have, even old friends, especially old friends. "I could never look away from you," Keanu said simply. "Not then, not now." The honesty in his voice surprised them both. For a moment, they stood there, the years between them, collapsing like a house of cards, leaving only the essential truth of who they were to each other, then and now. The moment was broken by Vivian's voice calling Lily's name. They turned to see the production designer approaching with several studio executives in tow. "There you are. These gentlemen want to hear more about your community center design, the one with the adaptive spaces." Lily glanced at Keanu, who nodded, encouragingly. "Go," he said softly. "This is your moment." As Lily walked away with Vivian and the executives, Keanu watched her, back straight, head high, speaking with the confidence of someone who knew her worth. In that moment, he felt a certainty that whatever happened next, Lily Chen would be okay. She had found her way back to herself, and perhaps, in helping her rediscover her path, he had found something precious too, a connection that transcended time and circumstance, a reminder of who he had been before fame changed everything, and a glimpse of who he might still become. 6 months passed. The movie wrapped, post-production began, and life moved forward in unexpected ways. Lily no longer lived in Keanu's guest house. 3 weeks after the wrap party, she had signed a contract with the studio as a consulting architect for their next 3 major productions. The position came with a salary that allowed her to rent her own small apartment in a quiet neighborhood, not far from the studio. It wasn't fancy, but it was hers. The first place she could truly call her own since losing everything after the accident. Keanu had helped her move in, carrying boxes of newly purchased essentials up the stairs, arranging furniture until everything felt right. When the last box was unpacked, they had stood in the center of her new living room, both aware that something was ending and beginning at the same time. "I guess this is it," Lily had said, looking around at her new home. "It's a good place," Keanu had replied. "It suits you." They had continued to see each other after that day. Dinners, movie nights, occasional weekend hikes in the hills. But something had shifted. They were no longer bound by circumstances or necessity. Each time they chose to spend time together, it was exactly that. A choice. Today they were meeting for coffee at the same small cafe where they had reunited properly 6 months earlier. Keanu arrived first, choosing the same corner table. So much had changed since that day, yet some things remained constant. His fondness for privacy, his preference for quiet spaces where he could speak freely without worrying about being overheard or photographed. When Lily walked in, Keanu was struck once again by the transformation in her. Gone was the hesitant, wary woman from the park bench. In her place stood someone who moved with confidence, who held herself with dignity. She wore simple clothes, jeans, a soft blue sweater, comfortable shoes, but there was nothing simple about the light in her eyes or the easy smile she gave him as she approached. "Sorry I'm late," she said, settling into the chair across from him. "Meeting ran long." "No problem," Keanu replied, pushing a coffee toward her. Black, no sugar, just as she liked it. "How did it go?" "Really well. They approved my full design, concept for the community center." Her face lit up with genuine pride. Not just for the movie set, but for actual construction. The studio's foundation is going to fund it as part of their community outreach program. "Lily, that's incredible." Keanu leaned forward, sharing in her excitement. "When does construction start?" "Next spring. It'll be built in that neighborhood east of downtown, the one with the highest homelessness rate in the city." She took a sip of her coffee, then set the mug down carefully. "They're naming it the New Beginnings Center." "Perfect name," Keanu said softly. Lily nodded, her expression growing more serious. "It's going to have everything I wished for when I was on the streets. Shower facilities open 24/7, a kitchen that serves 3 meals a day, classrooms for job training, a healthcare clinic, and upstairs, transitional housing units where people can stay while they get back on their feet." Keanu listened, marveling at how her experience, painful as it had been, had transformed into something that would help countless others. "But the part I'm most proud of," Lily continued, "is the workplace program. We're partnering with local businesses to create employment opportunities, specifically for people transitioning out of homelessness, and not just minimum wage jobs, but real careers with growth potential." "Like what they did for you," Keanu observed. "Exactly. Because that's what made the difference for me. Not charity, but opportunity. The chance to use my skills again, to contribute something meaningful." She paused, meeting his eyes directly. "To be seen as more than my circumstances." The moment stretched between them, full of unspoken understanding. From the very beginning, that was what Keanu had offered her. Not pity or rescue, but recognition of who she truly was beneath the layers of hardship. "Actually," Lily said, reaching into her bag, "that's partly why I wanted to meet today. I have something for you." She pulled out a small package wrapped in simple brown paper and placed it on the table between them. "What's this?" Keanu asked, genuinely surprised. "Open it and see." He carefully unwrapped the package to reveal a beautiful leather-bound sketchbook. Opening it, he found page after page of detailed architectural drawings. The community center, in all its stages of development, from rough concept sketches to final renderings. "Turn to the last page," Lily said quietly. Keanu flipped to the end of the book. There, he found a single sheet of paper folded in half. Inside was a check made, out to him for the exact amount of money she had calculated her stay in his guest house would have cost at market rate. "Lily," he began, but she held up a hand to stop him. "I told you I would pay you back someday," she said firmly. "I keep my promises." "I never expected this," Keanu said, looking from the check back to her face. "I know. That's why it matters. That I do it." Her expression softened. "It's not about the money, Keanu. It's about standing on equal ground, about closing one chapter so we can start another one properly." Keanu understood then what she was really saying. By settling this perceived debt, she was removing the last barrier between them, the lingering imbalance of helper and helped, giver and receiver. Now they could move forward as equals, writing whatever story they chose together. He carefully refolded the check and placed it back in the sketchbook. "Thank you. Not just for this, but for trusting me with your journey." Lily smiled, relief visible in her eyes. "So, about that new chapter." "Yes?" Keanu asked, hope rising in his chest. "I've been thinking a lot about what comes next. For me. For us." She took a deep breath. "The studio wants to send me to their London office for a few months to consult on a big project there. It's an amazing opportunity." "London," Keanu repeated, trying to keep disappointment from his voice. "That's great, Lily. Really great. The thing is," she continued, watching his face carefully, "I haven't given them my answer yet. And I was wondering—" "Yes?" "I was wondering if you might want to come with me. Not for the whole time, of course. I know you have your own projects, but maybe for a few weeks?" Her words came faster now, betraying her nervousness. "We could see the city together. You could show me all those places you talked about from when you filmed there. Or if that's too much too soon, I completely understand." "I'd love to," Keanu interrupted, a smile spreading across his face. "I'd love to see London with you." The tension in Lily's shoulders eased. "Really? Really?" He reached across the table, his hand finding hers. "Actually, I'm supposed to be in Europe around that time anyway. Pre-production meetings for the next film." "Convenient," Lily said with a knowing smile. "Very." Keanu agreed, his thumb gently stroking the back of her hand. They sat like that for a long moment, neither feeling the need to fill the silence with unnecessary words. Outside the cafe window, life in Los Angeles continued its relentless pace. Cars rushing by, people hurrying to their next destination, everyone seemingly racing toward some elusive future. But inside, in their quiet corner, time seemed to slow, allowing space for this new understanding to take root and grow. "You?" "No," Lily said finally. "If someone had told me a year ago that this is where I'd be, I would have thought they were crazy." Sitting in a cafe, holding hands with Keanu Reeves, planning a trip to London. Keanu laughed softly. "Life takes unexpected turns. Some better than others," she agreed, squeezing his hand gently. As they left the cafe together, stepping into the warm California sunshine, Keanu felt a profound sense of gratitude for whatever twist of fate had led him through that park 6 months ago. Some might call it coincidence, others destiny. He didn't have a name for it, only appreciation for the second chance it had given them both. The story of Keanu Reeves finding his first love living on the street had indeed shocked many who eventually heard about it, but not for the reasons tabloids might have imagined. The truly shocking part wasn't the dramatic contrast between their circumstances or even Keanu's generosity. It was the recognition that sometimes helping someone isn't about rescuing them from their situation, but about seeing them clearly enough that they can remember how to rescue themselves. Walking side by side down the sunlit street, neither famous actor nor formerly homeless architect, just two people who had found their way back to each other against impossible odds. Keanu and Lily were living proof that the most powerful force in any human life isn't fame or money or even talent. It's being truly seen by another person exactly as you are, with all your flaws and potential equally acknowledged and accepted. And that perhaps is the greatest gift anyone can offer, the gift they had given each other.